I was going to talk about how I started my last video, and I said something about my main issue about something, and I said, when I listened to it, it doesn't sound right. Why did I have an issue about it? And so I thought, well, I'm going to try another. I thought I'd do another take, but I think it's just going to be a continuation. So, my last talk, I was talking about evolving one's own consciousness and letting go of control of, maybe I didn't talk too much about that. How do you let go of control? Well, this is usually talked about in spiritual literature as letting go of your ego. Do you really want to let go of your ego? What do we mean by ego? Before I want to even entertain the idea of letting it go, I maybe should know more about what does the spiritual teachings say about ego? And, like, do I have an ego? Am I ego? And if I'm not ego, then okay, so these are a lot of questions. And, why did you say you have an issue with? Okay, let's see what I get. What I do generally is I change a lot of hats. It's an affectation. Okay, that last hat had enough to say, this is an orange hat, and it's saying, it doesn't want to talk yet. I have lots of hats because sometimes they want to talk and sometimes they want to wait. This talk is also about, sometimes I stop talking in the middle of a sentence. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know why I stopped. As I said in my last talk, I do all these things. I didn't say this, but I'll say this now. I do these ad lib. So consciousness feeds me the words, and sometimes in the middle of a sentence, it has me stop. Sometimes it has me stop in the middle of a sentence or at the end of the sentence, and then I'll meditate for 45 minutes on camera. Other people that do videos, if you're going to be acting in a commercial, you've got a script. And you have to memorize the script and deliver the lines to the camera. Scripted television, sitcoms. Then we had reality TV, which was just turn the cameras on, put a bunch of not even actors, just people into a room and call it Big Brother. Some people found it interesting. I hated it. I preferred the scripted comedies because they were usually quite cute. The person who wrote the scripts was getting them from consciousness, and then the actors just, took these lines and then they delivered the lines in a certain way that, if the show bombed, no one watched it, and the show was canceled, or the show became a Seinfeld. For me, I'm no Seinfeld. Okay, a new hat. So I'm not going to talk anything more about my last video other than I said I had an issue at the very beginning of that recording. And then when I played it back, it was like, why did you say you have an issue? I don't know. This hat says, more important than why did you have an issue or why did you say you had an issue? Because clearly I didn't. I mean, personally, I don't know what I'm going to say. It's all ad lib. It's coming right from consciousness. Some of my videos, like I did some earlier ones this afternoon, I was quite angry. I appeared angry. As an actor, I was expressing a verbiage and feelings of anger. Was I personally angry? My body was expressing anger. When an actor is on a soap opera and they're having an angry moment, would you say the actor is angry or is acting angry? in those earlier videos today, I was acting angry. Why? Well, it was just consciousness wanted me to act angry because it had a commentary that it wanted to make about some things. The difference between an actor acting and a person on the street is most of the time a person on the street, if they're feeling anger, it's because they're getting anger through their ego. They're taking something personally, and the personally is the ego. Ego takes things personally. One of the teachings of Don Miguel Ruiz in his book, The Four Agreements, is don't take things personally. It's hard for an ego not to take things personally because it doesn't know how. Why doesn't ego take things personally? Because a lot of things it takes as a personal attack on itself. Eckhart Tolle, in his books, he says the ego is a lot to do with what he calls the pain body. What is the pain body? It's a very unconscious ego that takes over people. And when the pain body takes over people, they're pretty much unable to act consciously. They pretty much go to instinct. What's the problem with that? Humans are not instinctual animals. Animals run on instincts. Humans have got higher brain function, but it gets hijacked. And we lose consciousness because we get triggered. According to Eckhart Tolle, why do we get triggered? We get triggered because we still have a lot of undeveloped personality, lack of experience, or some people are very, senior citizens that were never given to really look at their own personality and their own mind. They never picked up a psychology textbook in their whole life. And so they're running on what we would call ego. It's pretty much the default for humans to be of an egoic nature, unless you grew up, let's say your mom and dad were Tibetan Buddhist and they meditated all the time. If you were born into that family, you would have a very different experience than if you were born into a family that might be portrayed on a sitcom, like That 70s Show, or I don't even watch TV anymore. I don't know what these sitcoms might be today, but they're very common and back in the day. Do people in general have more consciousness today than they did 30 years ago? No. So consciousness isn't evolving on the planet. It can't evolve collectively. It has to evolve person by person. Pretty much. And the traditional ways to evolve one's consciousness, well, in high school, they would tell you, go to university and, get some more courses from some professors. If you were born into the Tibetan family, they might say, you need to go to the monastery because there's more advanced consciousness lamas in the monastery. In Western society, you can pick up consciousness books, spiritual books, self help books, books on the law of vibration, law of one, Bashar. You can watch a lot of visuals on YouTube. You could go to a Vipassana meditation retreat for a couple of weeks and just meditate and get an advanced meditator to give you directions. You could find private teachers who may or probably are not so good. But a lot of people don't even go down this path. You know, for whatever reason, they got their education. Maybe they went to uni or college, maybe they didn't. And they got their job, and maybe they were going to have a child and they went looking to see, I need some books on child rearing or something, because they realized maybe I didn't get really a good, my parents might not have been the best at parenting. And instead of me parroting my parents, I want to look to see if there's some other tools of parenting that my parents didn't have access to. And I just want to be a better parent than my parents. A lot of people never think of that. I see a lot of people being their parents to their children. So, what do I have? I have my voice. And that's what I'm doing, is I'm just encouraging people, please don't get stuck thinking that you know it all because you went to grade 12 or you went to some courses in university or college. Don't figure that that's the end. A long time ago, when I was I think I was unemployed. I was unemployed, and there was a course that I took. It was like not really university course. It was a small course put on privately that was sponsored by the government to help people get ready to go back and find a new job. And I think it was at that course that they said, prepare for lifelong learning. And they asked us about a bunch of books that we could recommend to one another. And I remember somebody recommended Dr. Wayne Dyer's book, Your Erroneous Zones. That's like 1975, I bet. And there's a lot of people who were around in 1975 that have never read that book. There's a lot of people in 2020 who should read that book because, Dyer wasn't really that well known. He was on some PBS, public broadcasting in the States, a few times. He had some really good stuff. But in those days, we didn't have the internet. And there was a lot of people that missed your erroneous zones. Some people really need a lot of consciousness training. They need it really badly. other people really need consciousness research because they need to understand um, where they are on the scale of human consciousness. There is a scale, and they need to understand where they are because a lot of times people get trapped for a whole lifetime in one layer of consciousness. And there's so many layers of consciousness. Some of them are very toxic, negative states. And some of these negative states lead to all kinds of horrible things, not only for the person, but for the people around them. Someone says criminality. Yes, but there's some people who can really put on a good act and appear to be very smart. And you wouldn't think some of these very smart people have got problems because they're still in a lot of negative consciousness. You know, a sociopath that can pass themselves off as a psychiatrist. Oh, unless you had some background in doing your research on this, I don't know, you might watch some of these thriller movies and get these ideas. But, there's a lot of research that goes behind when they're going to create some of these characters in the movies. And in the end, I just want to remind you that I don't really want people to love any particular one teaching because it kind of locks you in to one school of thought. And I know some people who think that they're really evolved consciously, but they only studied one thing. And to me, they really look two-dimensional. It was a good thing that they studied what they did, but, move along and study a whole pile of different things. What else can you study behind the scene? Well, when I did a lot of my consciousness studies, I was doing various works during the day and doing my readings, watching some videos on my time off. I did do some courses where I went off and traveled and did some things, but not that much. I don't know what else to tell you other than you've got it, use it, keep developing it. Because if you don't, it will atrophy. And you'll have wasted years of life as a human. And the next time round, you might not be a human. You might reincarnate as a cat, and then a pig, and then a buzzard, and then a yak. And then you might come back and be a human in another part of the world or on a different planet somewhere else in the galaxy. People automatically assume one of two things. I die and then it's over. There's nothing else. Or I got a pretty good idea that reincarnation is right. And I'm going to reincarnate, But a lot of times people don't really think as what. Well, maybe a crow, but they don't really think they're going to come back as a crow. They think, I'm pretty much going to come back as a human. I mean, I was a human this lifetime. It pretty much makes sense that I'll come back as a human. Why? Well, I mean, I went to first grade, second grade, third grade as a human. So if I'm me today and I drop dead, pretty much I'm going to walk into the next world and I'm going to be my same age with my same mind. But you don't have anything to go on that says that. So, well, all right, I'll have some lifetimes as an animal or something. The whole point is if you're not using the time when you're incarnated as a human for developing your consciousness, how are you going to develop your consciousness if you are a cow? I think, cows can't talk, but they're doing advanced algebra in their head. Why do we keep thinking? Because there's lots of stories in reincarnation that people do have animal lives, and that you're actually quite fortunate to be born as a human. Buddha said something like that. You're quite fortunate to be born as a human. It's quite rare. And Buddha said, it's even more fortunate if you hear the word enlightenment, which is, a shortcut to everything to do with Buddha's teachings. And then, I don't think he really stated it, but everyone else would say, it's an awful thing to be born a human, a very rare thing. An even more rare thing is to hear of enlightenment. And then the sad thing is, hearing of enlightenment, hearing of the Buddha, and not pursuing it. Instead, you went to the mall and bought some makeup. Oh, hell. I was going to end it there, but I pressed it twice and it wouldn't stop. So maybe I'm supposed to keep going. Okay, I'm going to keep going. New hat. New subject. Do we all experience the same reality? No. We see our realities through our eyes alone. And sometimes it's hard to discuss consciousness with people because not knowing where they are on the scale of human consciousness, you don't really know what the subject should be. Unless you muscle test. Dr. David R. Hawkins did muscle testing, which is a human technology based on the work of a chiropractor named Dr. John Diamond. Chiropractors use muscle testing to see if you might have an allergy. Dr. Hawkins used muscle testing to research consciousness. Does it make sense? If you read Dr. Hawkins, it makes a lot of sense. If you went to one of these fact checkers, like Snopes or something, or Quackwatch, they might say Dr. Hawkins, even though he worked with a Nobel Prize winning scientist, Linus Pauling, they said he's a quack. But you have to wonder, well, who are these people at the fact checkers? I got the name Snopes, I must mean something. I got the name quackwatch.com, I must mean something. People use Snopes all the time. I looked into Snopes and I found out that I wasn't too impressed with the background of Snopes. It's not a professional organization. It was a married couple that ended up getting into a really messy divorce. And they're all over Facebook. Snopes, or whatever. These other fact. You don't know who these people are. But at least with Dr. Hawkins, you know that he was a medical doctor, he was a psychiatrist, and he worked with a Nobel Prize winning scientist, Linus Pauling. That's better than most people on the internet. And yet quackwatch.com calls him, he's a quack, which means a doctor not worth listening to. This is a beer hat. If you were in the bar, what could you talk about? Most people at the bar talk about beer, music that's playing on the jukebox, sports, or somebody will go, "Do you think I'm pretty? Do you want to take me home?" I put on a beer hat, and I remember in the old days when I used to go to bars and drink beer. And that's the end of our video. Thanks for watching. Please share, and don't be afraid to watch another video. Oh, this is ridiculous. This phone won't stop. I gotta have to see if I can hard shut off my phone. It seems to be frozen. Oh no, it's done it again. My phone is on the fritz. I can't turn it off. And it's still recording.